I'm here today with Kayla Craig. Kayla's first book is called To Light Their Way, a collection of prayers and liturgies for parents, and it releases from Tyndale House on October 5th. A former journalist, Kayla is adamant about paying attention and embracing curiosity in her work as a writer and podcast producer. She writes nuanced, nurturing prayers at Liturgies for Parents on Instagram and co-founded the Upside Down podcast, a place for ecumenical conversations on faith and justice. She's also a podcast producer for Sacred Ordinary Days. Kayla and her pastor husband, Johnny, live in Iowa, where they're raising 4 young kids who joined their family via birth and adoption. And when she's not playing Legos with her sons or advocating for her daughter with disabilities, Kayla can be found sipping strong coffee. Yay. You can connect with Kayla at kaylacraig.com. That's KaylaCraig.com. So Kayla, thanks so much for joining us.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Brian.
Well, it's always, a thrill to talk with a first-time author, someone who's just in the throes of this crazy endeavor of writing and launching a new book. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about what that experience has been like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I loved the process of sitting down with my journal and my pen and penning the pages that are now in the book. But I had no idea that the whole process would take as long as it did. A total newbie learning as I go, and had no idea that all the people it would take to make this enter the world, and I've loved getting to speak into the design, because in a collection of a book like this, it is such a tactile, tangible type of book that you hold in your hand, and you want the cover to feel good. You want the pages to feel good. You kind of want it to be an experience as you're sitting and holding it. So that has been really neat. And then now, launching the book is a whole new entry into kind of putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and sharing the what and the why and the how behind your words on the page. So I'm loving getting to talk to other writers and other people kind of in the different circles that I exist in. But I'm needing to remember that sometimes there's such a thing as too much coffee. Shut the computer down, turn off my phone, stop drinking coffee, and take care of myself too.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, before we started the interview, you were telling me how you've been following Writing for Your Life for quite some time and benefited from that.
Yes. So your work has been so helpful to me from the very beginning stages of my publishing career. So I've been writing online for a long time, and then it kind of converged with some different publishers reaching out, asking if I had ever, considered writing a book and what that might look like. And I had no idea how to proceed in that lane. So I did a lot of reading on your website, going through all those newsletters, watching videos about proposals, hearing other people's perspectives on what to do with getting an agent and how to find the right fit of an agent. Just kind of all of those steps. I feel like you really resourced thoughtfully writers, especially when you're first starting out. And it's not like there's a little guidebook that's just going to walk you through your specific journey and experience.
It's a complicated sphere and completely opaque for people who are not familiar with it. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Now, did you have an agent, or did you go to Tyndale directly, or how did all
that? Yeah. So I ended up getting an agent. Rochelle Gardner is my agent.
Oh, sure. Oh my gosh.
Incredible.
Rochelle's participated in a lot of our events and
yes. And she has represented so many authors that I deeply admire.
Yes.
And so I feel really grateful to have her on my team. And then she helped me, kind of get my proposal out once it was ready. And I'm so grateful that Tyndale has really stewarded these prayers really well and dreamed a lot bigger than what I had thought. I thought it'd be this little tiny kind of grab and go book. And they're like, I think this could be something like big and hardcover and, like something that you can hold that's like tangible. So they really ran with it and midwifed the words on the page.
That's so awesome. That's really great to hear. So the name of the book is To Light Their Way. What motivated you to write that book?
Yeah. Well, it's a collection of kind of modern but rooted in ancient truth prayers and modern liturgies for parents. And I wrote it because they're the prayers that I've needed as I have raised my 4 young kids and often feel like I don't have the word to pray on my own. My background's in journalism. I always follow the news. I'm on Twitter more than I should be. And I'm always going through the headlines and wondering, how do I raise my kids in this reality? How do I hold my faith in a loving God with the heartbreaking injustices that I'm reading about every single day? How do I see beauty in the ordinary and hold the lament and the grief that I feel? So it's just all of these different things that we hold every day in our hearts and minds and bodies and souls. And so I wanted to create a prayer book that I had never seen before, a prayer book that, I say in the introduction, it's not a collection of cotton candy prayers, but it's something that you can really like chew on and like get into, and hopefully that it'll be a comfort even in the chaos and even when you don't have the words to pray and whatever that looks like. And there's different sections, depending on where you are and in your parenting. Maybe you have a kid that's going off to college, or maybe you are just trying to get pregnant, like there's so many different variations of that. And so I just kind of wrote the book that I needed, and I interviewed a lot of other parents, asking them through different lived experiences, what would you have prayed now looking back if you had had the words, and trying to hold those and honor those well. Because I have my lens that I write through as, like a middle-class white woman. Like I have a lot of blind spots. And so I wanted to talk to many different people and many different family dynamics and backgrounds and traditions to, there's more than 100, which feels like a lot, but honestly, there could be like 1,000 prayers. So, but I hope that from what I could fit in this book, that I stewarded that well.
Good. So within book marketing, everyone talks about the target audience, so what did you feel like? Did you have a buyer persona that you created? Who did you feel was your target?
I think my target audience is me, and lots of people like me, a lot are women, but I did want to be really inclusive to make this a book that wasn't floral, that wasn't scripty. It's not prayers for moms, but it is prayers for parents. But I think it's a lot of parents who are like me, who have probably some sort of faith tradition, but are wondering what now, or maybe starting to dip their toes into a deconstruction, that wants something that is richer, that doesn't ignore the realities of the world that we live in, and that also has like a sort of poetic bent, a view for beauty, and seeing art as kind of an act of resistance in and of itself, and seeing that God can really be in all things. So when I think about who the target market is for this book, it's probably a lot of people that I know, in my real life, my neighbors, myself. So yeah.
My daughters too. They're kind of age range that you are. Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned before, you've got a background in journalism, right? So you've done a lot of writing, but that's much different than writing a book. So
absolutely,
can you talk about how that background plays into what you've just done?
Yeah. Well, I'm used to writing on a deadline. So that was good because I'm used to, okay, you got to create this and you got about 24 hours to do it, So I had that experience. Like I kind of mentioned, that innate curiosity that I have, and that I have like a natural interest in other people and in other people's stories really helped serve me as I was kind of researching and trying to make the prayers as robust as possible, because I did just ask people, in situations that I have never lived in. I've not been divorced, but I wanted to make sure there was a prayer for that. I have not lost a baby, but I wanted to make sure there were words to that. Like so many different things. So being able to interview people is a skill and a practice for me. But also, writing a prayer is nothing like writing a feature for a magazine or writing a column for the paper. Like it's a very different type of writing. But I really, as probably a lot of authors you talk with, I'm a very verbal processor, and a lot of it is through getting words on paper. And I oftentimes, that's how I connect with the divine. That's how I connect with God. And so it was a different experience, but it was kind of like a merging of these two parts of myself into this new whole.
So, there are a lot of prayer books out there, obviously.
Yeah.
How would you differentiate this from them?
Yeah. Well, I have never quite seen a book like this before. And I think that's why I wanted to write it, because it was something that I knew I would like to have as I'm praying for my 4 kids, who are all very different. They joined us through, birth and adoption. They have different needs, different joys, different struggles, all of these different things. And I never found a book that spoke to parenting in this world that we're in right now, and that drew from, liturgical rhythms even, and like these ancient um, holidays and holy days, and still entered into prayers of lament, of talking about racism with your kids, or just delighting in the beauty of creating something with your child. Like all of these different things, I just wasn't finding it. And that's not to take away from the books that are out there. But I just wasn't seeing in the prayer books I was seeing for parents to pray were typically very mom-centered. They were very much steeped in like specific spiritual or like evangelical denominations maybe, or like praying for your child's future spouse. And it was like, well, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but that's just not what my soul needs right now. So a couple of people have told me they really like Every Moment Holy, and I have a copy of that too. And they're like, in a way, this is kind of like a shift on that book specifically for parents, which I thought was a neat way to describe it.
And so, speaking of that, I previously did a lot of work with Frederick Buechner, and he really talks a lot about paying attention to the sacred and the ordinary, which is one of the areas you focus on too.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that as a parent, I have had my eyes open to that more um, than I ever did before. I was always moving so fast, and kids inherently cause you to slow down, right? Even sometimes when it's like, can you please hurry up? Can you please just get your shoes? And oh, we don't even know where the shoe is. And oh, that shoe, you actually like stepped into, it's like there's a slowing down, but I also think that slowing down can be incredibly sacred. And seeing those moments that our children illuminate, and I think a childlike faith, um, I don't think it means dumb faith. I don't think it means simple or basic faith. I think it means wonder and curiosity, holy curiosity, and this well of love. And so I see that with my kids. We're going a walk, and my 5-year-old picks up a rock and is like, this rock looks like a heart. And just, there's just this beauty in those moments of and overcomplicate prayer to need to a certain way or be a certain way. But I really think that in that moment when your child shows you a rock or points to a cloud and says, oh, that's the shape of this, like that's a prayer too. That can be an incredibly holy moment.
So one of the other things that you did was incorporate the Christian calendar, into the book.
Yes.
How did you go about doing that?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make sure there was a section that people could turn to year after year, and so something that has really helped root me kind of in the times that we're in through the liturgical calendar as well. And so I wanted to have holy days in there as well as kind of like some special holidays in the mix too, just because it is a nod to the universal church and knowing that people are praying and observing these holidays around the world. It's such a uniting factor and it's rooting. Like I spent the last time right before my manuscript was due, I had a bunch of those prayers to finish. And I wrote this book in the margins of my life, like on the deck or at my kitchen table or, in the chaos of having 4 kids and 2 dogs in a pandemic. But a kind soul from our church so I stayed there for a weekend to finish my scripts. And it was almost like I took this pilgrimage in the life of Christ and exploring journey to me. So I hope others too, even if they maybe don't know the calendar.
So Kayla, just summarizing the book, what would you say would be like the one thing that you most want parents to take away from the book?
I just want them to know they're not alone, that other people have prayed these prayers, other people have walked through moments of deep joy and also deep sorrow. And God is there in all things, and you don't have to be alone as you try to kids as you're trying to raise them to love God and love their neighbor as themselves. So I just hope it feels like off of you that conversation that's already happening with God.
Well, Kayla, thanks so much for writing the book and for sharing it, with the world. And congratulations. And I really hope the rest of the book launch goes incredibly well for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate